And joining me now is MSNBC political analyst Brittany Packnett-Cunningham. She's a former member of President Obama's 21st Century Policing Task Force. Brittany, I know you were listening in to our previous conversation, and I want to sort of pull out another thread here because I'm seeing the connections all around. I'm sure you are as well. Between Kyle Rittenhouse and the defendants in the Ahmaud Arbery trial, what do you make of the rise in white vigilante violence, which is, I think, how we can categorize these cases?
You can if you're lying.
You know, Zerlina, conversations like the ones you're having tonight are one of the reasons why I am so thankful for you and so glad that you have the space that you do, because we need to go deeper, as your earlier guest said, than the headlines. Headlines are continuously talking about the tears, about the theatrics, but we actually need to be talking about the inevitable outcomes of a culture of white supremacist patriarchy that depends on violence. You know, bell hooks would consistently remind us that we cannot separate patriarchy from white supremacy, from heteronormativity, from.
How did these two bread tubers sneak on to mainstream media?
This is BreadTube 101, man.
Oh my God.
Yeah, CRT is not being taught in public schools. It's being taught on MSNBC, though. That's for sure.
Right.
Of dominant structures that rest themselves in someone's understanding of their identity, and therefore their belief in what their responsibility is to keep this country that they believe belongs to them in the social order that works for them. So this kind of vigilantism is
how much do I say that we need to come up with an American narrative that works for all of us? Like, how much do we talk about that?
Right.
Nobody's trying to write blacks out of the fucking American story, okay?
The CRT people are.
They're trying
to create a completely different story.
Yeah.
Like saying, okay, you white people, you have your story, we're going to have our story. Don't you dare tell us that our story is ever wrong. Don't fact check us.
That's not a path to success.
No.
By any means.
We need to have a shared, unified idea and patriotic image of our own country.
That's kind of
we can all work together.
That's kind of the woke law projection as well, because they want to say that white people want to teach a whitewashed version of history when I've never seen that.
Yeah, maybe 60 years ago they did.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
We've come a long way.
Well, that's why I said, whenever people bring this stupid CRT argument, you say, really, do you have an example of this? And they don't. They never do.
The president's Task Force on 21st Century Policing was created by an executive order signed in the United States by President Barack Obama on December 18th, 2014. Obama created it in response to the unrest in Ferguson, Missouri, following the shooting of Michael Brown by police officers there. The 11 members of the task force included academics, law enforcement officials, and civil rights activists. The co-chairs of the task force are former Philadelphia Police Commissioner Charles Ramsey and George Mason University professor of criminology, law and society, Lori Robinson. Is this Lori Robinson here?
I missed her name, but
she supposedly was on this task force.
Right.
That's why I'm like 2000. I mean, this is like 7 years away.
But it's funny because if someone's moniker is that they're a civil rights activist, generally, at least in today's standards, by today's time, it's like, okay, what do you have, like a degree in something? Do you have a job? Like, what does that mean? It means you bitch on Twitter or somehow get into these random panels where you come up with a bunch of bullshit. Okay. You have no expertise or basis being involved in any of these conversations.
Yeah. Civil rights. I hear civil rights activists and I think, piece of shit, basically, is what I think.
But isn't that so sad though? That's so sad that this is the world we live in right now.
Well, I think grifter. I think, and a lot. I mean, I'm not saying that because I don't believe in civil rights. I do believe in civil rights. Like, people are constantly giving me a hard time. Adam's SJW woke. Oh my God, he's totally.
We believe in civil rights under liberalism. We don't believe in socialist, Marxist power theory nonsense.
But you have people that are waking up. Like, there's a lot of people on YouTube that realize the Black Lives Matter organizers are grifting. They're getting a bunch of money from white people and buying houses for their families with it. That's not a principled way to be. They're not even promoting.
Was it Michael Brown's father or mother who was saying that they got like no money from the Black Lives Matter people?
Yes, it's totally disgusting. It's crazy. That's why my inclination is just, you're using these people. That's the way that I think. I read, you guys all know this because I've said it a million times, but John McWhorter's book, Woke Racism, in that book, he says that there are 3 things that the Black community should be working towards that would actually help. So I also think when you bring up things like civil rights activists, I think, are they working towards this stuff? Or are they bitching about the white heteronormative patriarchy, right? On John McWhorter's list, the patriarchy is not one of them. I hate to spoil it for you. One of them is the war on drugs. The second one is reading programs for everyone. I mean, I don't like to make it racialized, but I guess, and vocational skills. So those are his 3 things that he thinks would help. He's like,
why aren't we talking about the patriarchy? Why aren't we talking about the white supremacist nation that we live in?
The things that he comes up with are completely, I mean, they're structured incentives. They're like, people get into dealing drugs because that's where the money is.
Right.
They need other economic opportunities. So
direct result of the backlash that we always see whenever movements for greater equity and liberation come through. We've seen it in the 60s. We certainly saw it after Reconstruction was intentional.
That's your, anyone that says equity or liberation, that's your little buzzword card. Say, oh, this person hates liberalism and is a socialist. Okay, let me check that off here.
Ended because folks that look like you and me, Zerlina, were making entirely too many strides. We know that white supremacist patriarchy will continuously depend and rely on violence to maintain and create the social order that it prefers, which means that anyone who has an identity whose existence actually flies in the face of that, Black folks, brown folks, LGBTQ people, disabled people, etc., or anyone whose politics would demand equity for all of us, that those folks stand in the way of the social order they prefer. And therefore, all of us will be at risk of the kind of terroristic vigilantism that we've seen displayed in the trials of the folks that you're talking about now.
There you go. Kyle Rittenhouse shooting a pedophile is him defending the white patriarchy, everybody. I don't know if you guys knew this. When 17-year-old Kyle woke up that morning, he's like, you know what, folks? You know what I want to do today?
Gotta prevent.
I don't want to play Call of Duty. I don't want to scrub graffiti off of a school. I don't want to go be a lifeguard today. Today, I'm thinking at 17 that I want to defend the white patriarchy.
Yeah, it's so ridiculous.
Let me grab my AR-15 and defend white patriarchy everywhere by walking around a protest asking people if they need medical assistance like the white patriarchy would do.
What is I'm baffled by this show. I've never heard of this show before.
I know.
I want to see what the ratings are, because this is like, are people buying this? This seems like a bad YouTube channel.
This feels like, I'm assuming this is on in the middle of the day, because that's usually where they put their weird new shows.
So how do we sort of move through this moment? Because obviously, as you mentioned, Reverend Barber wrote an amazing book with the parallels, pointing out the parallels between the redemption and what's happening now, the period in American history right after Reconstruction was ended. And so can you talk about the way in which we can navigate this moment? Because it's clear that there has been a response to the racial reckoning. And the response to the racial reckoning, when everybody was like, I want to be an anti-racist, is no. No, we're not having that here. We're banning critical race theory. We're banning books. We're not talking about race. We're not talking about history. I don't want my kids to feel bad about the past. But how do we push through that? Because I feel like that is still a minority of the American public.
Is it good to force, like, guilt onto children?
Obviously. Yeah, obviously.
Do you want your kids to feel bad about the past? I mean,
I want my white children to go to school, and I want the teacher to say, "Listen here, whitey, you're an oppressor, and you see John over there. John's not white, so you're victimizing him. So don't stop looking at him. You're victimizing him with your eyes. Okay, he's gonna get extra credit, and you are gonna get an F because you're white and you're an evil oppressor, and you should feel bad. You should be ashamed of yourself. Now
Why are
take
we
this sign
starting
that
a
says I
war?
did bad, and you tape it to your chest. That's what I want."
I mean, it's so obvious that they want to build programs they want to encourage white guilt. They're farming white guilt. That's the whole strategy here.
Mm-hmm.
It's so sad.
Which is
I don't feel guilty about the past. You don't feel guilty about the past, do you?
No, well,
Not my fault. I didn't
I'm
do
not
any of that shit.
Listen, my ancestors immigrated here
Mm-hmm.
in the early 1900s from like Russia and Romania. Okay, I don't.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I don't feel really responsible for what the fuck they did. Why the fuck would I feel responsible for what other people did just because we share a fucking shade of melatonin? Okay,
Yeah, I don't really know much about my
or
ancestors.
melanin. I'm
so
sorry,
I don't-
melanin. Not
I take zero responsibility for the
yes.
friended bloodline.
why we should stop explaining ourselves to people who want to make us ashamed for telling the truth and wanting equity. Look, I've been thinking about this for a while, and I truly feel
Are we trying to make them feel ashamed for wanting equity?
Yes, you should. Because what does equity mean? That means you want redistribution of income and property to be equal along all lines. That's what equity. It means everything. The outcomes have to be all be equal. That's what equity is. Okay,
Right.
not equality of opportunity, equality of outcome. And yeah, you should feel bad if that's what you want. Because fuck that.
You should.
That's insane.
You should shame them.
You should shame people for that.
Yeah.
Equality of outcome is insane and impossible.
All the boomer liberals though just think, oh, that's the hip new way to say equality of opportunity.
Yes, they don't have no clue what's being discussed.
Yeah.
So I found Zerlina Maxwell wrote a book.
The end of white
Called-
politics.
Oh, you found it.
Of course.
The End of White Politics: How to Heal Our Liberal Divide. And apparently this book's all about how like those dang white moderates in the Democratic parties go into white Joe Biden. They don't know how to bring the Democrats in the future of being cultural Marxist. So there you go.
I gotta tell you, I do not see how this is gonna last. I think
It's not going to last.
they've gaslit as long as they can gaslight. I mean, you voted Democrat in the last I'm never voting for another Democrat again. I see them as just racist pieces of
They're
shit.
going to get destroyed in this midterm. Well, we already saw it in Virginia after the last election. You already had a lot, we had Carville and a bunch of other people. We had a lot of mumblings, people going, this woke shit, it's going to fuck everything up. And when the Democrats get destroyed in the midterm, it's going to be, you're going to say they're all going to start turning on each other and be like, oh, it's a wokeness. And then AOC's going to be like, it's not the wokeness. It's all the moderates.
Yeah, they're fighting over that stuff.
Yep. They're fighting.
we have spent entirely too much time defending a position that is not only perfectly defensible, but is right in the eyes of history. So we see this.
Oh, I'm so glad history has eyes.
I'm on the right side of history, guys.
Yeah. I'm so glad. Every communist nation has turned out to be a utopia in no time at all. I'm so glad we have the judge of history on our side in the search for equity.